So this is our first sample one-point perspective drawing. Again, just to remind you, these are samples, and please use your own creativity and make it your own. The first thing that I want to do is establish my horizon line. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to measure down 3 inches, make a little dot on both sides. And this is going to help me to line up my ruler so it's exactly the same distance below the top of my paper. So 3 inches and 3 inches, and then I'm going to draw a line to connect them. And this is going to be my horizon line. The next thing I'm going to establish is my vanishing point. And you can measure out the paper and get an exact center spot on your horizon line if you want that for your vanishing point, but it's not necessary. Okay, my next step is I'm going to start to work on a road. So I'm going to line up my ruler to my vanishing point and then pull out 2 receding lines. So again, receding lines are the lines that merge out from my vanishing point. Okay, so I have my horizon line, vanishing point, and I've started my first 2 receding lines. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to add a line down the center of my road, and I want to make sure it's right in the middle. So I am going to line up my ruler, and I created this about 6 inches long, so half of 6 is 3. So I'm going to put a little line there so I know where to line up my ruler from the vanishing point to the center of my road. And keep in mind, perspective, as things get further away, they get smaller. So as I add my lines, so again from my vanishing point out to this dot, I'm going to draw longer lines out in front, and then as I get closer to my vanishing point, I'm going to make them smaller, and I also want to make them a little bit closer together. Okay? Now what I want to do is I want to start adding buildings. So I am going to add a building over here on the side. So my first thing that I need to establish is a shape. So I need to think about how I'm looking at the building. So it's going to be the side of the building because the front of my building I want to face my road. So my first step is to make sure my ruler is in line with the edge of my paper, because I need to make sure that these lines are as vertical and as straight as I can get them. So, and sometimes what I like to do is to use the edge of the ruler to help me, the top there, because I know that's going to be a straight line. And I'm just going to continue it out. Okay, just double checking that's vertical. And then I'm going to finish the top here. Okay. Okay, so I have the side of my building done. Next piece is again receding lines back to my vanishing point. So this is going to start to create the top of my building. And then I need another receding line here from this corner of my building. And then my road actually already established that line, so I don't need to draw that. So now I need to think about how long I want my building to be. So again, parallel lines. I know this line needs to be vertical because it's going to be the side of my building that's actually facing the road. So I need to make sure I line my ruler up so it's as vertical and as straight and as parallel as I can get it. So you notice I started my line here because corner of my building's here, so this line stops here. So that means this line has to stop here. So now the top of my building runs horizontally, so this line also needs to run horizontally. I need to make sure again that they are parallel. So I'm going to line this up. I'm going to slide it up here. And I always like to check. I also have another horizontal line here, which is my horizon line. So you can also use that as a guide as you want. Your paper obviously is horizontal as well, so you can use those as resources. So these back lines, now that I have my building created, I can erase those. Okay, I want to keep this line though because that's part of my road. My next piece that I'm going to do is I actually want to add a sidewalk over here, so I want to show you what that's going to look like. So I'm going to need another receding line. So that's gonna come from my vanishing point. So I'm gonna start here, and I'm gonna run this line out down my paper, okay? So that's gonna look like that. So if we think about a sidewalk and what it looks like, the lines are gonna actually need to be horizontal. And they're gonna get smaller and closer together, just like with our lines from the center of our road here as we get further back. So again, this line has to be horizontal. So I'm gonna line it up about here to start my first line. And then slowly as I move back, you could use your ruler to measure it out to make sure it's an exact distance. But I'm just gonna use eyeball it just to make sure, okay, as I get further back, and it only has to be a slight change in size. It doesn't have to be too drastic. So as I keep sliding back, I want to slowly make it get just a little bit smaller each time. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at my ruler here because it needs to be horizontal, so I'm actually using this line here. I can use the bottom of my paper just to help me create those horizontal lines and make sure that they're straight across. Now with your lines too, as things get really far away and get closer together, they almost start to tend to disappear. So if you get to the point where it starts to get hard to add those lines back in this area, what you can do is you can certainly continue with your ruler, or just keeping a straight horizontal line, you can just start to add little lines so it almost looks to the eye like it's starting to disappear, okay? So it's starting to fade away. Okay, next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna add a door onto this building. So my door is gonna face my road. Anything, just to remind you, that goes on the front of the building, we can just draw as a shape. So I'll actually put a door on the front just to show you what that's gonna look like. And again, I often like to use my ruler to help me because I know it's perfectly straight. So I can just trace around the end here. So I have a rectangle. Okay, so there's a door on the front. So again, perfect shapes, we don't have to worry about the vanishing point. But when we get to the side of the buildings, we have to take into account it's gonna get smaller. So that perspective that things get smaller as they move further away. So parallel lines again. So the side of my door here, I need to make sure that it runs vertical and parallel to the end of my building here. So I'm gonna do one line here. And again, I need to make sure, again, it's vertical, straight up and down, and then also parallel. So even this corner of the building, I can tell it's parallel. So the furthest line here, the top of it is what I'm gonna draw to my vanishing point, okay? So this receding line, I'm gonna start at the top of that line it up, and pull back, okay? Often you might make this line a little bit longer or shorter. I happen to have gotten lucky there. And with practice, you'll kind of know, okay, I know that back line needs to be a little bit longer. But sometimes you might have to erase a line. It might be too long, or you might have to add a little bit to it. So not a big deal. So I'll put a little handle there. So now I have my door that's facing towards the road. I'm gonna add another building over here. So again, I start with a shape. So again, I'll start with a rectangle shape. I'll make this building a little bit bigger. So I'm going to use the top of my ruler to get me started. And then I'm going to slide it over again. I need to make sure that it's a shape. So I'm going to use a rectangle. I need to make sure that these lines are vertical on the side, and then the top obviously is going to be horizontal. Okay, and I'm just using my horizon line as a reference point. So there's a perfect example. I need to just add a little bit here, and then I'm gonna erase just that little piece there because I won't go too far. Okay, top lines need to merge back to my vanishing point, so I need a receding line here. One thing that you can start to do too is, if you know you're not gonna build a building that's gonna be all the way to the vanishing point, you can start to end your lines where you know it's going to be long enough. So that way you don't have to erase so many lines. Okay, this corner, another receding line. And then again, my sidewalk has created my receding line for the bottom of the building. Okay, so next, vertical line that needs to be parallel to this line. So I'm going to line this up, pull it down here. Top of the building is a horizontal line, so I can use my horizon line to help me line it up. It's got to be from this corner and pull it across. Okay, so there's that building. Okay, the next thing I'm going to add is, I may want to put like a billboard on the top of this building. So those are signs. Maybe I want to, I don't know, make this a grocery store, car wash. Maybe I want to put the name of my town up here on this building. So again, I need to look at this billboard as a shape. So I'm going to be looking at the side of the billboard. So it's going to be in the shape of a rectangle. So again, I'm going to use my ruler. So I'm going to start it about here. Again, these lines have to be straight and vertical. So you can almost see I have it lined up with the corner of this building. So I'm going to just pull it up to about there. Okay, so again, just to remind you, I made this into the shape, or going to make it into the shape of a rectangle. Just straighten my paper out here. Okay. And then because this is in front of my building, I wouldn't see that line behind there. Okay, next step is I need to pull lines to the vanishing point, my receding lines. Now, this top part of the building, can you see how it's billboard, it's very close to my horizon line. So there's not going to be very much of a top to this building. So let me show you what I mean by that. So when I bring this over here, can you see there's like barely much room? So I am going to still try to establish, obviously, a line there. So I'm going to line it up and pull it, and I think I want my billboard to end right about there. So my next one, again, line it up and pull that receding line. So again, this line here on the top of, let me turn my pencil this way. This line here runs horizontally. So I am going to create a line to end the top of my billboard that's also a horizontal line. So it's just going to be a teeny tiny line that I'm going to add there. So let me just make sure my ruler is straight. So you can barely even see it. I'm going to have to add a little bit there because it was so tight because I'm so close to my horizon line. Okay, so my billboard's going to end at that point. Now I'm going to pull it down. So I'm actually going to make little legs on my billboard. So I'm going to pull this line down here, this vertical line, because it has to be vertical to the end of my billboard. And then I just want to make sure that this is in line with my vanishing point. So I'm going to just pull a little line here, and I'm going to pull a little line here. Because again, I'm going to put legs on this billboard, so I can erase that line. I want to establish where I want the writing to end. So this top part here is going to be where I'm going to write whatever, if I want to name the building, if I want to name the city, and then this line is going to be a horizontal line, just like the top of my billboard. Okay, so I have two little lines here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the leg for the end of my billboard. So that's going to be there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to pull it there. Okay, so now I'm starting to have my legs established. But if you notice, this one's not quite finished. So this I can see two sides. I should be able to see two sides on here. So this line is a horizontal line. So I need a horizontal line back here. So I'm going to set my ruler this way so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So horizontal line there, and then I'm going to need a vertical line to pull it up. Okay, and then I can erase this. Okay, so I have a billboard on that building, so I can write whatever I want. And when you write stuff on a billboard, keep in mind your letters are gonna go straight up and down, okay? So for example, I don't know, maybe I want this to be Bob's Building. So I'm gonna draw my letters vertically, so straight up and down. And can you notice I'm just kind of lightly drawing my letters? That's because obviously with these lines, if I want to spruce them up or make them more bubble letters, because it's drawn very lightly, if I make a mistake, I can easily erase it. So what I'm doing is as I'm drawing these letters, I'm just trying to use a gauge as far as, okay, are my letters about the same distance from the top and bottom of this? And we'll throw a little S in there. Okay. Okay, I do want to show you how to do a window. So I'm going to put a window on this side of the building just because the sides that face the road or the inside of your buildings, they're a little bit more difficult. Obviously we know the sides that are facing us, we can just draw as a shape, no problem. Sides of the buildings get a little bit more tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish actually the sides of my window. So I'll actually do a double window so you can see what that would look like. And then I need another vertical line over here. Okay, so sides straight up and down, just like my door, sides of that straight up and down vertical lines. Next thing I'm going to do is, so this farthest line over here, I'm going to line it up to my vanishing point. And I can already tell I'm going to have to lengthen that line, but I'm going to pull it up here, and then I'm going to do the same thing back here. So these are my receding lines. Receding lines run back to the vanishing point. So as you can see, this should go in line with the top of my building because they're both merging to that vanishing point. Now this line I did not make long enough, so I'm just going to go back here and make sure this line is vertical and parallel to the side of my building and pull it down like that. Now if you want to split the window, you can certainly measure it. So let me do that step with you. So this is about 1.5 inches. So put a line about here, about 3/4 there. And then this line is a little bit longer. So this is about 2.5. Okay, so about right here. And then I'm gonna connect them, okay? So basically all I did was split the line, split it here. If you wanted to have it a cross section in the middle, because some windows have that, line up to your vanishing point, and then you're gonna pull a receding line there, okay? Okay, so at this point, what I would want you to do is, certainly you can use this tutorial to help get you started. You need to make it your own though. So use these as a guide. You can add billboards to wherever you want in your city design. You can change your buildings however you want them. And finish it up with your own creativity. Okay?